Claire moved briskly between the crowded tables of the little café in Manhattan, her arms expertly balancing plates of steaming food and cups of coffee, her smile never faltering even as exhaustion tugged at her. Working double shifts had become routine, yet she never complained. Every tip, every hour mattered, not just for her rent but also for the small amount she sent to her younger sister overseas for school. That morning had started like any other until a new customer walked in, a middle-aged man dressed neatly in a tailored coat with a briefcase resting by his chair. He looked out of place, frowning at the menu, flipping through the pages as though they were written in code. When Claire approached, he attempted his order in halting English, his accent thick, words stumbling into one another, and the strain on his face was evident. Instinctively, Claire smiled warmly and replied in fluent French, her voice smooth and comforting, instantly easing the man's tension. His eyes lit up with surprise and relief, and soon the awkward pauses turned into an animated, easy conversation that filled the air with laughter. For Claire, it was second nature. Her mother, who had passed years ago, had been French, and the language was one of the few treasures she had left from her. She found herself enjoying the moment, the way her guest seemed at home in a foreign city because she took the time to make him feel seen. Yet what Claire did not realize was that someone else had been watching her closely. In the far corner of the café sat another man, alone, quiet, yet with an unmistakable aura of authority. He was dressed in a crisp charcoal suit, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharply attentive, following every detail of the interaction. It wasn't just her French that caught his attention, it was her patience, the way her laughter rang with sincerity, the grace she carried even in her plain uniform. He had seen countless people hurry through life, but there was something about this waitress that felt different, unpretentious, genuine, magnetic. When Claire moved on to serve other tables, the stranger picked up his pen, scribbled something carefully on a folded piece of paper, slipped a crisp envelope inside, and tucked it beneath the bill. He left quietly without drawing attention, and by the time Claire returned, all that remained of him was the note and envelope waiting beneath the untouched coffee cup, a silent invitation to a fate she had never imagined. When Claire returned to the corner table to clear the dishes, she found the neatly folded note and the white envelope tucked carefully under the bill, as though placed there with intention. For a moment she frowned, thinking perhaps it was a forgotten belonging, but when she opened it, her breath caught. The handwriting was elegant, deliberate, the words simple yet powerful, "Your kindness doesn't go unnoticed. You have a gift. If you're willing to take a chance, meet me at JFK Airport, Terminal 4, tomorrow at noon. J." Beneath the note was an envelope that felt heavier than it should, and when she peeked inside, her heart nearly stopped. It was a first-class plane ticket, destination, Paris. For several long seconds, she stood frozen, her pulse racing as her mind scrambled to make sense of it. Customers sometimes left generous tips or kind words, but never something as extraordinary, as impossible, as this. Shoving it quickly into her apron pocket before her manager noticed, she forced herself to keep working, though her thoughts spun wildly with every step she took. Who was J? Why Paris? And why her? That evening, in the solitude of her tiny apartment with its peeling paint and humming radiator, Claire sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the ticket laid before her like a piece of another world. Her mother had once dreamed of taking her to Paris, telling her stories of candlelit cafés along the Seine and the golden glow of the Eiffel Tower, but life had been unkind, and that dream had died with her. Now here it was again, resurfacing in the most unexpected way, wrapped in mystery. Yet along with the spark of longing came fear. What if this was dangerous? What if she was walking into a trap? She traced her fingers over the paper, torn between caution and the aching pull of possibility. All her life she had lived safely within the lines, working, paying bills, doing what was expected. But what if fate was giving her one wild chance to step outside of it? She pressed the note to her chest, closed her eyes, and whispered to the memory of her mother, "What would you do?" And though no answer came, she felt, deep within her, the first flicker of courage. The next day, Claire stood inside JFK Airport, her hands trembling as she clutched the sleek envelope that had kept her awake all night, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure the people passing by could hear it. She had almost turned back 3 times on the subway, convincing herself it was foolish, that she was walking into something she didn't understand, but something deep inside had pushed her forward, a voice that whispered this could be the moment that changed everything. She scanned the terminal nervously, her eyes darting over hurried travelers with their luggage, businessmen on calls, families juggling strollers and bags, until finally, she saw him, the man from the cafe corner table. He looked taller than she remembered, dressed sharply in a tailored suit that seemed to command respect without effort, his presence calm yet powerful. When his gaze met hers, his lips curved into a knowing smile as if he had been expecting her all along. "You came," he said softly when he reached her, his voice warm, steady, carrying no trace of surprise. Claire swallowed hard, her words tumbling out with nervous honesty. "I don't usually follow strangers to airports." He chuckled, not offended, only amused. "And yet here you are. My name is Julian Beaumont." At the sound of the name, Claire blinked in shock. She had heard it before, in the news, on the covers of business magazines. He was a billionaire investor, a man whose empire stretched across continents, someone so far removed from her world it felt almost unreal. "Why me?" she whispered, her confusion thick in the air. Julian's gaze softened, not with pity but with something gentler, almost admiring. "Because in a city where everyone rushes, I saw you pause to make a stranger feel at home. You gave a piece of yourself without expecting anything in return. That kind of kindness is rare, Claire, and it deserves more than just a thank you." She shook her head, torn between disbelief and awe. "So you reward waitresses with tickets to Paris?" His smile widened just slightly. "Not reward. Opportunity. A chance to step into something bigger than you've ever dared to imagine. Paris is waiting. And so am I." The final boarding call echoed through the terminal, and Claire's breath hitched as the weight of the choice pressed against her chest: return to her small, predictable life or step into a future written in daring ink. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she gripped the ticket, and with a deep breath, she stepped toward the gate. Paris unfolded before Claire like a dream painted in golden light, every street alive with music, laughter, and a beauty she had only ever imagined from books her mother once read to her, and as she stood by the Seine with the Eiffel Tower shimmering in the night sky, she could hardly believe she was really there. Julian had kept his word from the very first day, never overwhelming her with his wealth or status, but instead gently guiding her into opportunities she never thought possible, introducing her to friends in the arts, recommending her as a translator for an international company, and encouraging her to pursue the talents she had long tucked away out of necessity. Each moment spent in the city seemed to unlock something inside her, a confidence she didn't know she possessed, and though she tried to tell herself this was only temporary, only a glimpse into another world, she found herself dreaming of staying longer. Julian, for all his power and influence, never acted entitled. Instead, he listened when she spoke, laughed at her stories, and looked at her in a way that made her feel seen, not as a waitress or a fleeting encounter, but as someone who mattered. One evening, as they dined on a terrace overlooking the glowing rooftops, the breeze carrying the scent of fresh bread and roses, Julian slid another envelope across the table, his eyes steady on hers. Claire's heart skipped, half expecting another ticket, but when she opened it, her breath caught at the handwritten words inside: "I brought you here because I believed in your kindness. But now I ask something more, not just to see Paris with me, but to build something beyond it. Will you stay?" Her hands trembled, tears blurring her vision, because in that moment she realized this wasn't just about Paris or opportunity, it was about trust, about love, about the kind of life she had never dared to hope for. She looked up at him, at the man who had changed everything with a simple note left on a cafe table, and for the first time in years, she let her heart answer louder than her fears. Smiling through tears, Claire whispered, "Yes." And as Paris glowed around them, she knew her story was no longer about surviving each day, it was about beginning a life filled with possibility, adventure, and love she had never believed was hers to keep.